Hi, and welcome to the very first installment of Crystal Clear Thoughts with Mikey. Today I want to talk to you about the idea of an afterlife. Some people believe in one, some people don't. But I want to share an experience that might enlighten and change your views. In 2012, I had had two major losses. My mother passed away suddenly, and a couple months later, my ex had unalived himself by jumping off a bridge. I was very distraught. I was having a very, very hard time with it. And I noticed that at my local holistic store, they were doing a spirit circle. A spirit circle is you get a reading, but you also listen to 9 other people's readings as well. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. It'll be a little reduced rate. Let's go for it. And so she said, when we all sat down, I'm going to start with something that resonates with one of you, and we'll go from there. And so she said, I see African elephants. And the woman next to me said, I love African elephants. So she said, okay, let's start there. And she said, okay, I see a woman and her mother in the shop. And the mother's mother is like fidgeting around with everything. And she's really, not liking how everything's placed. And I'm like thinking, my grandmother was very much that woman. And she said, is your mother and her mother passed? And this was an older woman that she was asking this to. And they had passed. So far they were still like together with that. And then she said, the daughter, she had a child who passed away at birth. And my mother had a child that passed away at birth. And then she said, they're trying to contact somebody with the name that begins with M, and I'm Mikey. So I had to stop and I had to say, I think this is actually more for me. The woman next to me agreed with me. So then she said, I think this is probably more for you. And she said that my mother's death was a great relief to her. And it's like what 60-year-olds passing would be a great relief to them. But my mother was riddled with anxieties and fears. She was rapidly going blind when her favorite activity in the world was reading. She had lost 2 siblings to cancer, and with bad COPD and breathing problems, she thought maybe she had it too, and that terrified her. She had told me a few more things that my mother wanted me to write, which now I am. And she said, and this is so selfless, this is so my mother, she said a young man had passed away in your life, and she would like to allow him to step forward. And this was just like, okay. And because this is exactly what happened with one of my exes. And she said that you gave both of them some tough love before they passed. And I did give them a lot of tough love before they passed. And she said they're not upset about that because they needed to hear what they heard from you in order to have gained the knowledge that they have now in their enlightenment. So that was like really interesting to me. And she was saying just how my mother was just surrounded by books. And she said that my ex was happy and full of life and who he was before his depression. And here I am thinking, okay, this was my ex. He was Catholic, gay, and unalived himself. He's got to be in a fiery abyss, right? Well, he wasn't. To me, it showed me that life isn't about all of this judgment that we place on it. That this life is really about learning and love, and that this is just a matrix for us to do so. That a lot of this religious dogma just doesn't really apply. A God wouldn't punish people. That's a very negative attribute. It just doesn't make any sense. So she continued to give me my reading, and her just telling me that my mother was surrounded with books when that was her favorite activity just was like blowing my mind. And while listening to the other people's readings, I could see how easily they were moved by what she was saying, because her examples were so specific. She was like, you have a book on your nightstand. And the lady's like, yeah, I have a few books on my nightstand. She said, no, especially a blue book. Do you know the one I'm talking about? And the woman said, yes. And she said, well, on page 63, you're going to get a message there that's going to relate, to your past loved one. And the things that she was bringing up and telling people were not written anywhere in any social media or anything like that. And I just knew she was really making contact. So is there an afterlife? I believe there is one, but is it what we've come to believe it is? I don't think so. I don't think it's what all this religious dogma says. And I think that some people, when they pass, are going to be very, very surprised. This is just something that happened to me that I would like to share. A few years later, I went back to see her and did another spirit circle. And this time she had brought up she said there's two men and they each have a hand on your shoulder. And she said that she had smelled alcohol. And my grandfather on my father's side had passed away from drinking. And she said, I see a beautiful love that he shared with his wife. And then tragedy struck and everything kind of went downhill after that. Well, tragedy did strike. My grandmother had passed away in her late 30s of lupus. And my grandfather ended up drinking himself to death by his late 40s. And she said that he thinks you're too hard on yourself, which I am way too hard on myself. And he said, what he wants you to know is that you're family. And that meant so much to me because they passed away before I was ever born, and I never knew, would they have liked me? Would they have accepted me for being gay? None of this I had any knowledge of. And he said, the one thing that I want you to know is that you are family. And that meant so much to me. And she said, I smell pipe tobacco. And my other grandfather smoked mostly pipe tobacco. In fact, when he passed away, there was like 9 nephews and we each got one of his pipes. And she said that you'll know him by the name Babs or Bubs. My mother had 2 nicknames as a child, Bubs and the Gink. And the fact that she knew my mother's nickname as a child, insane. And they just wanted to know to tell me that I'm on the right path. I'm doing what needs to be done. And that I just need to care for myself more. I don't know what you'll interpret from the story, but I hope it sends you a message that you shouldn't feel horrible about things that you've done or who you are, and just know that everything that's happening to you, everything that has happened to you was meant to happen for you to learn lessons and for you to gain love and insight, because that is enlightenment. Well, this is the end of my story for right now, but I can't wait to keep talking with you guys, keep sharing personal experiences that I've had, anything that I've learned that has helped me become more enlightened. I hope you guys are feeling wonderful, grounded. Understand that wherever you are today, whatever you're feeling is valid. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you.